Let's bring you an update on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We begin with Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, saying that the country's military has no plans for additional mobilization of men to fight in Ukraine, as the army has enough servicemen. During a teleconference meeting with members of the General Staff, he said in the General Staff there are no plans for an additional mobilization. The armed forces have the necessary number of military personnel to conduct a special military operation. But more than 50,000 Russians signed contracts with the ministry back in September this year alone, and over 335,000 people have started military service since the beginning of this year. In other news, European Union foreign ministers have held their first ever meeting outside the bloc over support for Ukraine. The meeting comes after a pro-Russian candidate won Slovak's election on Sunday, and the U.S. Congress omitted funding for Kiev from the spending bill. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba says that he is proud to host the meeting and suggests that his country will join the 27-member bloc at some point in the future. Kuleba was joined by EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell and the bloc's national ministers to pay tribute to fallen Ukrainian soldiers before convening for their roundtable meeting later. Meanwhile, Mr. Kuleba has commended Washington's support for Kiev, which he says is not weakening. U.S. and other Western military assistance have been very vital for Ukraine to fight back against the full-scale invasion launched by Russia back in February 2022. The foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, said that Kiev was in talks with Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Congress, and that the drama around the stopgap bill that averted a government shutdown on Saturday was an incident rather than something systemic.
Ukraine respects their commitment. We have a very in-depth discussion with both parts of the Congress, Republicans and Democrats, and against the background of a potential shutdown in the United States, the decision was taken as it was. But we are now working with both sides of the Congress to make sure that it does not repeat again under any circumstances. So we don't feel that the U.S. support has been shattered, because the United States understands that what is at stake in Ukraine is much bigger than just Ukraine. It's about the stability and predictability of the world. And therefore, I believe that we will be able to find necessary solutions. This is a historic event because for the first time ever, Foreign Affairs Council is going to sit down outside of its current borders, of the borders of the European Union, but within future borders of the European Union. And this is a message in itself, a message of support, unflattered support that the European Union is extending to Ukraine, which we are very much grateful for.
We will study the peace plan formula, Zelensky plan formula, in order to gather more support around the world and prepare the next one. All my colleagues come here, dear Dmytro, with the will to show, express their commitment to the commitment of the European Union to continue supporting you in front of the war of aggression of Russia against Ukraine.
Meanwhile, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell says that he proposed to Ukraine a new bilateral multi-annual envelope of the European Peace Facility of up to €5 billion, and that's about $5.26 billion for next year. EU foreign ministers convened in Kiev for their first ever meeting outside the bloc on Monday, broadcasting their support after a pro-Russian candidate won an election in Slovakia, and the U.S. Congress left Ukraine war aid out of its spending bill. Mr. Borrell told the news briefing the EU remained united in its support for Ukraine.
I propose a new bilateral multi-annual envelope under the European Peace Facility of up to 5 billion for the next year in singular, more will come. And I hope that we can reach an agreement before the end of the year. The strongest security commitments that we can give to Ukraine is European Union membership. The only one that attracts the attention and the work of the international community is President Zelensky's peace formula. It is, if I can say, the only game in town. It is the formula. Our resolve to support the fight of freedom and independence of Ukraine is firm and will continue.
The White House has been in touch with allies and partners about continued funding for Ukraine, and those conversations will continue, so says White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre reaffirmed the U.S. government's commitment to helping Ukraine defend itself throughout the war with Russia. Well, according to the White House spokesperson, there is a bipartisanship on the matter, and both Republicans and Democrats in Congress want to see the aid continue.
There's a bipartisan support, as we have seen from day one, for continued funding, in Ukraine. And look, let's not forget what the purpose of this is for. This is for to see the continuation of the brave people in Ukraine to fight for their freedom, right? To fight for their democracy. And so that's what we want to continue to do. That is what the president wants to continue to see, and not just us. There are Republicans and Democrats in Congress in a bipartisan way who wants to see funding in Ukraine continue. So look, we have been in touch with some of our allies and partners, certainly about Ukraine, and that is something that we have done for some time now, over the past 17, 18 months. And so that's going to continue. The president, as you know, was able to bring more than 50 countries together to show their support for Ukraine. That's our partners and allies. You saw what he was able to do with the NATO alliance. They are the strongest that alliance is the strongest that it's ever been. And so that commitment is going to continue. We've seen bipartisanship on this issue, to continuing the funding for Ukraine. This is, the president said it. The speaker and the overwhelming majority of the Congress have steadfastly supported Ukraine. So there is a bipartisan support for this from the beginning. It's going to continue. We've heard from Republicans and Democrats in Congress, and that's what we expect. What we know is that there's bipartisan support for this deal. Again, Speaker McCarthy was on the air multiple times yesterday saying that he certainly wants to continue support for Ukraine to get the weapons that they need. And so we're going to hold him to that. That is something that he has said. That is a commitment that he has made.